Welcome to Bringing People and Knowledge Together, Japanese Calligraphy by Shikō Kataoka at the University of Alberta. We're about to explore one of Japan's longest-standing and most highly esteemed modes of cultural expression, calligraphy. We'll do so through works by the acclaimed modern calligrapher Shikō Kataoka. We begin at the Prince Takamado Japan Center for Teaching and Research, or PTJC. First established in 1996, it was rededicated in 2004 to commemorate a beloved member of Japan's imperial family, His Imperial Highness Prince Takamado. He was a resolute supporter of learning about Japan and an admirer of Canadian higher education. When he and Her Imperial Highness Princess Takamado visited the University of Alberta in 1999, the prince shared his passion for fostering international communication, understanding, and friendship, especially between Japan and Canada. Shikō Kataoka admired Prince and Princess Takamado's vision and many contributions, and she generously lent her mastery of brush and ink to the Prince Takamado Japan Center, helping it introduce a Canadian audience to Japanese art and literature. Kataoka had a distinguished career as a calligrapher. She was an artist and a teacher. Winner of many of Japan's most prestigious national prizes for calligraphy, she exhibited her works around the world. As a collaborator of Dr. Sonja Arntzen, who was a professor of Japanese literature at our university, and later at the University of Toronto, Kataoka displayed her work at the University of Alberta multiple times, first doing so in 1985. In 1994, the Japan Academy of Arts recognized her accomplishments by awarding her permanent membership in that hallowed institution. In 1997, Kataoka inscribed the motto of the Prince Takamado Japan Center for display in this hanging scroll. It now expresses how the center honors the memory of Prince Takamado, Hito to Chisuki no Kouryu, bringing people and knowledge together. Kataoka's statement is bold yet subtle. Thick strokes of wet ink course across the paper. As they bend and dry, they reveal the pressure and momentum of Kataoka's brush. The stately column of text varies in width. Loose, open characters are followed by ones that contract toward their centers. Graphs of just a few strokes give way to complex, intricately structured ones. The rhythms of the bottom three characters echo those of the first three and bring balance to the inscription. Shikō Kataoka's command of brush, ink, and absorbent paper is on full display. Kataoka graciously donated a number of works to the University of Alberta Museum's art collection. Let's pay a visit to the University of Alberta Museum's Print Study Center to look at two more of them. Welcome to the Print Study Center. The Print Study Center is home to many Japanese prints, as well as works by Canadian and Eastern European artists. Today we'll examine two pieces of calligraphy that are quite different from the scroll that we viewed in the PTJC. Poetry was the most important genre of Japanese language literary expression in pre-modern Japan. It was especially valued at the imperial court. Not only did it express personal sentiments, but it also served pragmatic, social functions, such as marking public occasions. The hanging scroll on display here reproduces a love poem from Japan's earliest poetry anthology, the Manyōshū, or Collection of Myriad Leaves. When the speaker of the poem, a lady of the imperial court, recalls pinks on the autumn fields at Takamado, she refers to the district in Nara from which Prince Takamado's name is derived. Turning around, you'll see calligraphy mounted in the form of a framed tablet. It contains poetry that was read by modern members of the imperial family at an annual event at the Imperial Palace, the New Year's Poetry Session. Prince Takamado composed the poem on the right side of the tablet for the 1983 New Year's Poetry Session before he met the princess. The poem references Wolfe Island in Ontario. Princess Takamado composed her poem in the middle of the frame for the 2004 session. That was her first time to present poetry after the prince had passed away in 2002. Her poem speaks of happiness, likening memories of the addressee to the morning breeze and rays of the sun shining through the trees. The juxtaposition of these poems creates a poignant dialogue. By brushing the two texts in a similarly fluid style and framing them within the part of the paper that has been dyed to look like a Japanese fan, the calligrapher brings two people and their poetic ideas together into a unity that transcends time. Welcome to the Kurimoto Japanese Garden. Let's now step into the Kurimoto Japanese Garden. It's located a few kilometers east of Edmonton and is part of the University of Alberta Botanic Garden. An Amur cherry tree planted by Her Imperial Highness Princess Sayako in 1990 welcomes visitors. Please feel free to pause and examine a pair of poems that Prince and Princess Takamado composed on the topic of trees for the 1987 New Year's poetry session. The Kurimoto Japanese Garden is named after Dr. Yuichi Kurimoto, who graduated from the University of Alberta's Faculty of Arts in 1930. The first Japanese national to do so, he went on to found the Nagoya University of Commerce and Business. The 5 acres of the Kurimoto Japanese Garden bring principles of Japanese garden design to life in Alberta. The garden's waterways, stone lanterns, pagoda, bell tower, viewing shelters, and tea house are nestled among plant species that flourish in our northern climate. When Prince and Princess Takamado visited the province and attended an international conference at the University of Alberta in 1999, they enjoyed a tea ceremony in the garden. We're heading toward the garden's Ozawa Pavillion tea house. Opened in 1995, it was created to provide a space that would foster friendship and intercultural understanding. The structure is named after the Honorable Tatsuo Ozawa, a distinguished Japanese parliamentarian and advocate for Japan-Canada partnerships and educational exchanges. The Edmonton-based architect Junichi Hashimoto designed the structure. It combines the architecture of traditional Japanese tea rooms with space for other forms of gathering and exchange. Spaces like this tea room inside the Ozawa Pavilion have been designed for the formal drinking of tea since the 15th century. That was when Zen Buddhist masters began to transform the everyday practice of welcoming guests with tea into the ritual of cha-no-yu, or the Japanese tea ceremony. They grounded it into the Buddhist idea that everything is impermanent. As a result, Japanese tea rooms and tea ceremonies embody the aesthetics of wabi. Wabi expresses the belief that purity and tranquility are to be found in simple but elegant forms. It is the love of austerity expressed in plain materials, rustic structures, and the precise movements of the host who prepares tea for guests. The tea room and tea ceremony also incorporate the value of sabi, or taking pleasure in the old, the worn, the imperfect for its own sake. The alcove with the raised floor on one side of the tea room is called tokonoma. This is where the host will place objects that express the theme of the tea ceremony, such as flower arrangements, ceramic wares, incense containers, and scrolls of calligraphy. The calligraphy now on view has been mounted as a hanging scroll. The paper ground of the writing has been glued to a strong paper backing and framed by pieces of silk brocade. The scroll can be rolled up and put away for safekeeping, or brought out and hung for a particular tea ceremony. The 2 vertical strips of gold brocade, loosely suspended from the top of the scroll, are called futai, or wind ties. They are unique to this Japanese style of mounting. The scroll presents 3 poems from an 11th century Japanese poetry anthology, Wakan Doeishu, or Japanese and Chinese poems to sing. The first poem on the right was composed in literary Chinese by a Chinese poet of the 7th century. Its 7 character lines are written in evenly spaced, parallel columns of Chinese characters, or kanji. The second poem in the middle is anonymous and was composed in Japanese. It is an example of waka, or Japanese language poetry. The 31 syllables of waka are primarily written in the kana syllabary. That script was invented at Japan's Imperial court in the 9th century for the writing of Japanese language poetry and prose. The lines of the waka poem vary in length, and they begin at different heights on the paper. This arrangement is called chirashigaki, or scattered writing. The sinuous strokes and fluid outpouring of the kana calligraphy contrast with the visual rhythms of the previous poem written in Chinese characters. The third poem at left was composed in literary Chinese by a Japanese poet of the 10th century. It is written in 2 columns of 7 characters, but Kataoka has subtly varied the lengths of those lines so that they expand from right to left. This reverses the graphic contraction of the first 2 poems and balances the composition. As she brings together 2 important forms of Japanese literary expression, poetry in Japanese and poetry in Chinese, Kataoka also demonstrates her mastery of the 2 mainstreams of the Japanese calligraphic tradition: the writing of texts in kana script and the writing of texts in Chinese characters. Now turn around to see more. The pavilion's tea room opens into a larger area for gathering that is enclosed by sliding screens. Low tables and portable screens can be set out on the floor as tatami mats, depending on the occasion. A broad tokonoma allows the display of paintings, calligraphy, and other treasures. The calligraphy on view in the tokonoma is mounted in a Chinese-style scroll, without futai or wind ties, and it quotes a single line of verse by a celebrated Chinese poet of the 8th century. In order to render his imagery of blossoms falling into a wine jar, Kataoka has written the Chinese characters loosely, as if they are fluttering downward. The dense ink of the last 3 characters, words for spring, wine, and fragrance, suggests the suffusion of the blossom's delicate scent into wine and the season. Kataoka's choice of this line of poetry reflects the aesthetics of wabi and the Japanese tea ceremony. The fleeting moment of blossoms falling from their tree illustrates the Buddhist notion of impermanence and helps us appreciate the beauty of transitory phenomena. The aesthetics of wabi also inform the portable screen Cherry Blossoms Snow. Within its blue borders are 2 waka poems from the 13th century Imperial poetry anthology, Shikō Kataoka. The poem on the right half of the screen, in which cherry blossoms wrap the world in spring, is followed by the poem on the left, in which snow falls, unaware of a world of worries. The staggered arrangement of the 2 sheets of paper echoes the chirashigaki, or scattered writing, in which the poems are inscribed. It also suggests the passage of time. At top right, the calligrapher begins with the words for, "Now the cherry blossoms," and at bottom left, she finishes with the words for, "It piles up, the first snow." Such visualization of literary ideas also occurs in the final work of this exhibition, a pair of screens entitled New Year's Poems by the Prince and Princess Takamado. Each of these bifold screens is graced with 8 pairs of waka that Prince and Princess Takamado composed for the annual New Year's poetry session from 1986 to 2002. The prince's poems are written on square letter papers, with rectilinear columns of text. Princess Takamado's poems, in contrast, are written on papers shaped like Japanese folding fans, and her lines gently fan out. Kataoka has selected papers for the prince's compositions that are enlivened with bold dyes and gold and silver leaf. Some of their colors and forms appear deliberately to evoke the prince's poetic imagery. For instance, Kataoka has brushed the prince's poem on the topic of waves over abstract shapes that suggest a boundary between earth and sea, or the cresting of a swell. The effect recalls efforts by painters and calligraphers of Japan's early modern Rinpa school, who also constructed layers of visual and verbal meaning. The sprays of gold and silver pigment behind Princess Takamado's poetry are more delicate and ethereal. However, the gentle hues of the papers that bear her poems are carefully harmonized with the ones that convey the prince's sentiments. If you would like to see more artistry like this, please have a look at Shikō Kataoka's other works in the University of Alberta Museum's art collection. They're accessible through the Search the Collection function of the University of Alberta Museum's art collection webpage. A link is included in the credits. Through her texts, materials, scripts, and wielding of brush and ink, a calligrapher like Shikō Kataoka enters into conversation not only with other visual artists, but also with practitioners of other forms of expression such as poetry. She generates new dialogue and layers of meaning. Moreover, her work enables a contemporary audience, us, to commune with people of the past, the present, and diverse cultural contexts. Her calligraphy helps us appreciate those people's sentiments and gain a better understanding of their values and experiences. When Shikō Kataoka brushed the motto of the Prince Takamado Japan Center in service of its mission and Prince Takamado's vision, her brush and ink also illustrated a fundamental power of the Japanese calligrapher's art, namely that of bringing people and knowledge together.